very quickly. I mean, I'd write a chapter, and then I couldn't write anything else for another couple of weeks because.
This is why your chapters are so short, too.
No, the first novel. I'm talking about my unpublished first novel, which is an unpublishable direct. That I've actually got it written in my will that if I die, my wife is to burn that manuscript so it'll never see print. And it finally somebody hit me to John Updike's wisdom. It is actually kind of it's conventional wisdom of write 3 to 5 pages a day. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it stacks up. 3 to 5 pages a day means a chapter a week, or a short story in 2 or 3 weeks. And I do this 5 days a week. I used to write in the evening, and then I switched over some years ago to writing in the morning. And once that was the simplest, that changed from these headlong, grueling sessions, that would leave me exhausted and tired and unable to do anything else, to okay, every day, we're going to do a little bit and do it this way, made all the difference in the world.
Mary, what's your process?
I start with research, and probably spend as much time researching a subject and planning as I do in actually writing it. And this is bad, but I like research, so I please myself and do it. I don't recommend that. If you're doing that much research, you're doing too much. But I do as I say, not as I do. And when I write I have to synchronize, because mysteries don't just flow by themselves. You have to know where they're going. And I have subplots going along as well. And this is a series, so some of them carry over. So I've got the arc plot that carries over all the series. I've got the main plot for this book, and I have 1, maybe 2 subplots. And I plot them out on a timeline, because I've got to know what actually happened. Not the way I'm going to tell it. I don't tell it in chronological order, but I have to know how they all come in chronological order, so that this person can't know that because it didn't happen yet. So I have to switch something there and get everything to work, and then I can write because I've got the timelines going.
So would you describe yourself as an outliner?
It's not an outline, it's a timeline, and I think that's different. In my mind it is. And I don't so much outline as I do put together chapters. Like on the first chapter, and I write short chapters too. First, maybe 40 chapters or so in the book. And I'll put, this is what the scene is going to do, and it has to, and this is what that scene is going to do, and this is what's going to happen, and this is where he's going to find out that she knows this, and this is where, and then I can write.
I call that an outline.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Mary, when you do this, do you do it visually? Do you have like a whiteboard or a chart up on your wall, or just on your computer screen, or?
Piece of paper. I'm old-fashioned. Just paper.
I heard something like that said by Arthur Haley.
Oh, I don't think I'm unique, so yeah.
No, but Arthur Haley, I always thought that Arthur Haley would spend years doing research on his books. When he'd write airport or hotel or something like that, he would spend years doing the research for him. And during this time, he'd be doing multiple drafts of an outline until he finally, what he had was a big, thick folder that would have a very precise outline, which is chapter by chapter, scene by scene, who the characters are. And when he got that ready to go, he just put that in front of him, and then you're off.
I started out as what some people call a pantser, or a discovery writer.
Yeah.
I knew where I wanted to start. I knew where I was going to end up, and I didn't take any path to get there. And sometimes you don't get there.
Yeah.
The road turns into a swamp, or goes up a cliff, or they never finish building a bridge. And in 2010, I went up the mountain to Walter John Williams' house toolbox. It's a mountain in Tuscan, Mexico at 10,000 feet. So literally, you go up the mountain, and then you can't breathe for a few days as you begin to acclimate. And Walter, who is the master of plot, has this technique he calls novel breaking. deconstruct your book, and then you rebuild it. So we did that after I survived that experience, and that's what gave me the chops to finally write the book the way I needed to write it, because I started this 28 years ago, and it sucked. But I love the ideas. I'm not good enough writer for this yet. And they tore it apart, and over the course of 6 hours, rebuilt this. Characters vanished. Worlds vanished. Science fiction, I'm sorry. New characters came out. At one point, I was weeping because a scene emerged from this that was just heartbreaking. And I think it's in chapter 29. But you can come in, Jack. We'll always let you in, Jack.
It's the second time this weekend he's done that.
And it is transformational because now when I approach this, when you do a novel break, you're putting cards up on walls and you're moving them around, and instead of viewing the novel linearly, you're looking at every scene and every chapter and how it relates to every character's arc and every subplot, and they start moving around on you, and when you are done, you have the skeleton of the beast. And when it's time to write, you sit down and you take each scene and you go, here's what has to happen in this scene. Here's the reveal, here's the reversal, here's the raising of the stakes, here's the plot point. And that's the easy fun part. That's the effortless part. It's just like, now I put the flesh on the skeleton. Now I write the words, and it is such. I still am only good for so many hours of that a day, but it is such a different process, and it's so empowering for me. I find.
Well, I used to outline, and did my first 3 or 4 books were outlines, and then I kind of it was my 4th book, Labyrinth of Night. I'm sorry, where's that music coming from?
We don't hear any music out there.
Okay, I've definitely been in this convention for too long.
We're
But
not at a convention.
don't say that, Lawrence, please.
My name's not Lawrence.
No, your name is Lawrence. No, I used to outline, and then I noticed about when I wrote my 4th novel, Labyrinth of Night, after I